Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be showing you guys this 6'7" lockdown defender that plays amazing defense on NBA 2K24 because it has 99 perimeter defense with Hall of Fame clamps as well as a 90 strength for gold immovable enforcer. But with all of that out of the way, man, let's get started with today's video. Let's go. All right, so when making this build, you can realistically make it at two positions, and those two are shooting guard and small forward. Now, I ended up going shooting guard because I do want to guard more guards when I'm playing on this build, but for the height, you can see we went 6'7", weight 233 pounds with a 7'4" wingspan. Now, starting things off in the finishing, we really do not have a whole lot. We're gonna have an 85 post control so we can get post fade phenom on Hall of Fame, and that is realistically pretty much it. This build is going to be really good in the mid-range and decent at the three-point line, and a lot of our attributes are all just invested in on defense. So you're not gonna have a whole lot of finishing on this build, which isn't really that bad of a thing either, especially if you're playing random rec, because there are just going to be times where you just cannot get to the rim because you're paired with teammates that cannot shoot. Now, although this build has no finishing, you are not going to smoke a wide open layup on the break. All right, so now moving on to the shooting, we're going up to an 87 so we can unlock the Tracy McGrady jump shot base, which is the best jump shot in the game. So I had to make sure that we got that on this build. And then when it comes to the three-point shot, we're going to have a 76, which gets you agent threes on bronze. And you're going to be a very consistent shooter out of the three-point line if you know your shot timing with a 76-3. All right, so now moving on to the shooting highlights. And like I said, you're going to be a consistent shooter from out of the three-point line. Now, in this first game, I did not start off really well at all. I started off like a 1 for 6, 1 for 7 from 3 because I just got back from vacation. I took a whole week off from playing 2K. I really just could not time my shot, but we ended up finishing this game out really strong. This ended up being a 60-point game for us because we just kept on getting let wide open on catch and shoot threes, and we were just knocking them down super consistent. Now, one thing that I really do like with this build as well is you're definitely going to be able to create a shot in the mid-range area as well. With that 87 midi, you can take some shots off the dribble like you see right here. Those midi fades are going to go in at a pretty consistent rate, and since we do have post control on this build, you can get into the mid post and hit some post fades, post hop shots. So there is a little bit of a shot creating ability that you can have on this build, which is very nice considering the fact that you are a pure defensive build and you still have ways that you could score pretty efficiently. Now, since we're talking about shooting, I want you guys' opinion down below. Do you guys think shooting is hard on NBA 2K24? Because my opinion is kind of mixed. If you play the game a lot, it is not hard to shoot on this game at all. But if you do not play the game super consistently, it becomes very, very difficult to shoot consistently. So it's just a little bit of give and take here. I don't really know entirely how the devs can manage to balance a game like this where opinions on something like shooting are just going to be so polarizing, because you have the casual side of it where they're just going to say shooting is ridiculously hard, but then you have people that are going to say it's easy because they play a lot and they have a ridiculous amount of time played on 2K. So it's not like a situation where, like, let's say NBA 2K22 where everybody was saying shooting was easy. I don't think there was a single soul that thought shooting was hard on 2K22. So that's a very simple way. But on this game, it's just such a mixed opinion about whether it's easy or whether it's hard, because, you know, there's people like me that play a lot that can shoot like 60-70% from 3, and then you have other people that can't even just shoot 20-30%. And speaking of shooting, here was the jump shot I was actually using in today's video. Base Tracy McGrady releases are just going to be Tari Eason. If you do want to blend some Kyle Korver into that, you absolutely can. If that Tari Eason is just too fast for you, you could blend some slower releases into it to make it an easier shot to time. All right, so when it comes to the playmaking on this build, you're going to get a 77 pass accuracy, which is going to get you silver relay passer as well as bronze needle threader, and you're also going to get a 42 ball handle as well as a 35 sweep with ball. Now, this is not something you should sleep on because this is going to get you the normal dribbles animations when it comes to the ball handle, and then since we made this build at shooting guard, you can get the pro dribble style by default, which is a very nice thing to have at this position. All right, so now take a look at some of the playmaking highlights. Listen, that 77 pass accuracy is going to be pretty good, man. It's almost an 80. It's a very nice sweet spot, especially for something that's not a primary ball handler type of build. If you're playing point guard, you should probably go something in the high 80s to low 90s, but if you're playing shooting guard or small forward, you can definitely go with a 70 to 80 pass rating. Alrighty, so here are all of the animations I was using on this build. Obviously, some of these animations you cannot have access to just yet if you have not hit starter 3. A perfect example of that would be the Kevin Durant dribble pull-up as well as the James Harden hop jumper, but everything else that you guys see on the screen are stuff that you can use on the build if you make it is just the way that I. Now moving on to the one thing that pretty much everybody has clicked onto this video to see is the defense. For the interior defense, we're going to have a 74. For the perimeter defense, we're going to have a 99 to get us clamps on Hall of Fame. This is just something I wanted to try out. I have yet to play on a build with 99 perimeter defense, so I ended up doing it. But now let's get to these defensive highlights, and man, you're going to be able to do a lot on the defensive end. You're going to be very versatile playing on this build. You're going to be a rim protector. You can defend the paint. You're going to be disgusting on the perimeter. You can guard multiple positions. You're going to be able to get steals, whether it's in passing lanes or on ball. You're just going to be able to do a whole lot on this build defensively, and it is probably the best defensive build I've played on this entire year. Now, with that being said, man, 2K has done a lot of changes to this year's game when it comes to improving defense, and I just want to get you guys' feedback on this and see what you guys think defense is like in this year's game in comparison to last year. Do you guys think defense is better? Do you guys guys think defense is OP this year? Do you think it's a little bit overdone? Just give me your honest opinions about what you guys think defense is like in this game, because honestly, especially when you have badges like Immovable Enforcer on gold, which you just saw pop up right there, you can use some crazy stuff on the defensive end, especially when you're guarding on ball. When you combine having Immovable Enforcer on gold with also having high perimeter defense, it just starts becoming really hard to score on somebody that has good defense like that. And to give you guys my honest opinion on defense, I'll probably just try and work from like one level to the next when talking about it. When we're talking about interior scoring and like paint mashing, it is way better this year than it has been in previous years, especially earlier on in 2K23. Prior to that main patch they did in January, paint defense on 2K23 was actually very bad. Then when it comes to rim protection, it's a little iffy this year because with how the badges spread kind of works this year, nobody's really putting higher than Silver Anchor on their build. So it's hard to say whether rim protection is really good or not because the badge system is just kind of weird this year when it comes to anchor and block. But I think rim protecting is about kind of where it was on 2K23, especially when you have higher block ratings. You can get some pretty crazy block animations. And then when it comes to the perimeter defense, perimeter D is way better than it was last year, especially with the addition of badges like Immovable Enforcer. And Immovable also helps you in the paint as well. I forgot to mention that, but Immovable Enforcer is just such a big addition to this year's game that it totally makes 2K24 feel different defensively than 2K23. They actually somehow finally made strength matter just a little bit when it comes to badge. You know, I think defense overall is just way better on this year's game. But now taking a look at the build fully maxed out, the one thing that I do want to talk about really quickly is the physicals on this build. You're going to get an 85 speed, a 77 acceleration, which is going to get you fast feet on gold. Then you're also going to pair that with that 90 strength that I've mentioned a lot throughout this video, which is going to get you Immovable Enforcer on gold, which is one of the best, if not the best defensive badge in the game. And since you have that 90 strength, you're also going to get things like Brick Wall on gold, which is going to help you set some screens if you want to. And that's another weird thing with this year's game is that since strength is so valuable, it feels like almost everybody on the court has 90 plus strength, which means everybody can set big bodies, which is like the weirdest thing. And then we're going to have an 80 vertical, which is a requirement to get chased on artists on gold since we have that 87 block, and then the 99 stamina because we want fast feet and workhorse on Hall of Fame with this build. Now this build overall is a very good lock in this year's game, and one thing that I do want to mention is that this is definitely a specialist type of build. It's not well rounded at all. You're putting a lot of your points into defense on this build, but like I've mentioned previously throughout this video, you can still get buckets on this build if you know what you're doing out of the post and scoring in the mid-range area. And you also need to understand how to get open and score with a low ball handle, which does have a little bit of a skill to it, but again, you can do a lot on this type of build. All right, so now coming out of the My Player builder, we're going to get the shades of Tony Allen, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Derek White, and we're going to get the build name Defensive Menace, which I think is a super fire name to have on this type of build because it is definitely a defensive menace. It is definitely the best defensive build that you could probably make on this year's game. Maybe you could have more steal, maybe you can have a little bit less perimeter defense and still get similar results when guarding the perimeter, but this is how I ended up making the build. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm out. Peace.